I'm LazyCrazyJoe. Now you know, let's go. I've been asked to explain the Tell Me When portion of the LazyCrazyUI. For the purposes of explaining that, I have gone ahead and hidden most of the Tell Me When, and I only have the non-Tell Me When portions of my UI showing right now. Or for you, they're probably blurred out so that you're not confused by what is and what isn't a Tell Me When portion of my user interface. Right here, you can see the cast bar and the mana bars move down. This is all Tell Me When right here, okay? Now, if I wasn't in this form, and I'm in Boomkin spec at the time, so if I was to instead go into Boomkin form, Astral Power would be my top bar here. If I was in Bear form, it would be Rage. If I was in Kitty form, it would be Energy. You get the point. So when I'm in like a caster type form, it's mana. Otherwise, in Boomkin form, we get Astral Power. That is my primary resource here in Boomkin form. But what is the rest of the LazyCrazyUI as far as the Tell Me When portion? So let's go ahead and go over that. So I only wanted to highlight one thing at a time and explain for you. So the first thing I will show you is a stun icon and the target cast bar, as well as where the 5 combo points bar would be. If I target myself and then I do the same cast, you can see not only my cast bar down here, my cast bar being down here, but you can see my target's cast bar right here. Let's go ahead and go into cat form, and let's go ahead and attack something real quick. You're able to see as I build my combo points, they will show up right here. If I'm not in cat form, they will simply disappear. So you get the idea there, okay? I've gone ahead and I've enabled the first part of the user interface, part of the value section. This is called value 1, are these two icons. So you will notice right here, letter F is my interrupt button, the solar beam spell. So when my target is casting, the end of the cast will let me know whether or not I can interrupt it. And if I can, right there. Now, if I go to do it, I'll notice that it's not available. I have this currently set up so that when Solar Beam is off cooldown, my movement speed abilities from the icon next to it move over. And so I can see both of my primary movement speed abilities here as a Boomkin. One of them being Wild Charge and the other one being Dash. Not all specs will have the movement speed ability move over one into the interrupt slot. It depends on the spec. Being that this is a very long interrupt, I did go ahead and allow that functionality. For some specs, it's not available. But what you really should take away from this is that this is your interrupt slot, this is your movement speed slot, and that the user interface is dynamic. So let's go ahead and build on that. To do that, I have added the other part of the value section called value 2 in the groups. So now we have a little bit more information here. So we know when we have the ability to stun with our Mighty Bash. And this spot, much like right here is interrupts, right here his movement speed. And this is on every character. You'll find interrupts here. You will find movement speed here. Your primary crowd control is always found here. And a primary form of self-protection is found here. So you will see that if we were to use our self-protection, that is used, and there isn't anything that we currently have taken that is showing. If I want to go ahead and stun, I could walk up to this, use my stun, and now you get to actually see the stun icon finally shows up here. This is letting me know that my target is stunned. This is important because if your target is already stunned, you don't want to stun. So as I'm going to go to use my stun, I will look in this spot right where my cursor is to make sure that the target is not already stunned. Now, let's continue adding to the user interface. The important to watch section is located right here. Where we were discussing before, the value section was right here. I want to go ahead and just cast a spell so you can once again get your bearings for where we're at in the user interface. Where this leaf is, that would normally be the interrupt icon. Value 2 would be below that. Now, so when the important to watch section has nothing that is important to watch, it will actually default to the value section to move over. But as you're noticing here, I'm supposed to rebuff that. It's important to watch that. I'm supposed to rebuff this. It's important to watch that. These are important parts of the rotation that may not... I'm supposed to rebuff this as well. And it has been rebuffed. These are important parts of the rotation that are just as important as any other part of the rotation, if not more important than any other part of the rotation. And therefore, they are directly below your feet in a section that I call the important to watch section. Now I have everything enabled that you've seen before, and we'll go ahead and we will do what the important to watch section is telling us, and we will buff all of the things that we can buff. Once again, if we're just doing what the important to watch section tells us to do, we will notice that the icons that were hiding under the value section have now moved over. Ironically, there even appears to be some kind of an error that allows repeated icons, like this 9 repeating here. Like even if I use the Shift 1, actually it is only correctly showing the 9 there, but now it's showing double. I'm not exactly sure what's causing that, and if I learn how to fix it, I will. But just be aware that the icons do move over, and for the most part, they even move over intelligently. Now I want to add the rotation section. From this point on, we will only be adding to the user interface. We will no longer be removing sections. This way you're able to see where all sections are in correlation to the rest of the user interface. So now that the rotation section has been added, which are these 3 icons here, and the way that this will work is whichever one is most important is furthest left. It may be on cooldown, in which case move to the one next to it. Or you may have good reason that you feel to hold off on it, in which case we want number 2 to be available to you. For the same reasons, we also have a third section. We might have 1 or 2 on cooldown. You may be choosing to hold back for personal reasons. We want you to be able to play however you want, and we want to be able to give you multiple pieces of information here. Now, there will later be a cooldown section, and items from the cooldown section will show up in here as an overflow. This usually is not true for cooldowns 3 minutes and longer. But let's go ahead and take a look at here and see how the rotation is telling us to play. So once again, the important to watch is telling me to go ahead and launch these up. So I'm going to knock all these bad boys down, and then I'm going to get back to doing what this is telling me to do. Now, this is one of the rotation that actually tells me when to go ahead and use a filler. Not every rotation will tell me to use a filler. A lot of times I put the filler, it's just like if there's nothing else to do, play the filler. On this one, I was specifically requested by someone to put it in here as a filler. You can remove that one at your own will. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to do what the rotation is telling me. And as you're seeing, you're seeing how I'm playing in the results. And did I get that one off? I did rebuff that in time. But yeah, this is with the rotation section on. I'm basically just trying to follow whatever it's telling me to press, and not allowing anything from my important to watch section, hopefully, to fall off either. And in the upper right section over here, you can probably see a list of the spells I've been casting. I probably will not blur that one out for that reason. All right, moving on from this section and onto the cooldown section. All right, the cooldown section will be 4 icons wide, maybe less. In this case, you're only seeing 2 at the moment, but it's 4 icons wide. And this should cover all of your cooldowns, your major cooldowns and your minor cooldowns. A lot of your minor cooldowns will end up coming up here to the rotation section, just because that's the way they're designed to. In fact, you can see it right here, where the 6 just went up to the rotation section, and the 5 stayed down here. But when all 3 icons were being taken up by dots wearing off, for instance, that 6 was still down here. And I will just go ahead and play it out a little bit, and you'll be able to see how this is going to look. But even right now, there's nothing in the cooldown section. And should something show up, it likely would show up into the rotation section first. And you get the idea. We're playing the rotations. The cooldown, I mean, for a boomkin, there's not a lot of cooldowns showing at all times, depending on how you choose to build your spec. For other specs, this might be different. There might be a lot of information down there. In fact, for hunters and such, I know that there's traps that will stay down there pretty much at all times, unless you're using those traps. All right, I have gone ahead and enabled the lesser use section. Now you're seeing down here where I am able to track Innervate and also track Rebirth. These are spells that I definitely use, but I use them less often throughout a fight than I use most of my other spells. So this is my quote-unquote lesser used section. Now, I don't want to scare anybody, but in an effort to explain where you would manipulate the sections that we have discussed so far, I want to show you. So, the rotation bin, as I told you, or the rotation section, as I told you, is these three icons right here. The quote-unquote bin that controls it is right here. It's the closest bin I could get, the closest spot I could get to this icon that I can put a bin. So the rotation is built up of this many icons. And that is the rotation section. You will notice when it's open, it says rotation bin right there. If you need to manipulate the important to watch section, it is the important to watch bin. To make it bigger, I typically just drag it to a different spot and then I grab the resize, I make it bigger, I manipulate it, I make it smaller, and then I put it back where I found it, typically. The value bin is right here, and it services both value group 1 and value group 2. This is a shared bin across all specs. One of the very few shared bins. In fact, beyond that, you also have the PvP bin, which is down here. And you also have the lesser used bin right here. These are the only three bins that are shared across all three specs. Druid, obviously 4. Across the entire class. Most bins are spec specific. As you've noticed, when you cast a spell, the bars kind of spread out a little bit. The reason for that is I've designed it that way, and the cast bars are controlled by this section right here. It's called the Cast Plus Plus bars bin. The value section is the lesser used section is these three icons right here, controlled by the lesser used bin right here. The cooldowns is these 4 icons right here, controlled by this cooldowns bin right here. I hope that you have a better understanding now as to how to manipulate should you want to. Should you need to change a keybind, for instance, you would come here, open the rotation bin, click on the keybind you want to edit, like maybe your thrash is not scroll wheel up. That's what WU means, by the way, for me, is scroll wheel up. So you would come here to WU and you would change it to, maybe your keybind is F2. And now it will say F2 instead of wheel up. All of my keybinds are based on something called the More Perfect Keybinds list. I will have a link in the description down below. Feel free to look at it. You do not have to bind yours the way that I bind mine, but that is how I bind mine. Moving on. So you can't really see it right now unless I turn this on, the background on, but there is a checks section here where it will check, and if you are in combat, your potion will let you know when it's available. If you have a health stone, that will let you know when it's available. If you have something CC'd, it will track it for you. If you are in a raid situation, it will remind you to use a flask. And if somebody hits you up with one of a number of really cool buffs, it will let you know that as well, because these are the things that it is tracking. It is not tracking everything. It is tracking some things. You might be thinking, well, Joe, what about my buffs? So right here, above the health bar, well, this is where I have my character's health bars. Above the health bar of my character, I have a buff bars section and a buff icons section. All of your icons, all of your buffs that you would want to track for the most part are going to be tracked either as a bar or an icon. You can change them from bars to icons, from icons to bars, assuming you know how to manipulate them. It's not too hard if you just mess with it a little bit. You can turn off ones you don't want to have. You can enable ones that maybe I forgot. Feel free to, let me know if there's ones that I've missed. But let's go ahead and get into our rotation, see what we find here. So now you're starting to see things getting tracked. All right, that pretty much sums up all of the sections of the LazyCrazyUI. I know it might seem like a lot at first, but once you get used to it, your eyes will very quickly be able to get to and from all of the information that was normally spread out all around your screen, and be able to very quickly answer any question you might have. Is like, is this available? When can I use this? What is the next thing I'm supposed to be casting? If you're in trouble, like look down over here, you might have something in the value section that's going to keep you alive. You might have a stun available. You might have a bark skin. You might have what is this called? I don't even know the name of the spell. You might have a renewal available. You might have a cooldown available if you're DPSing. Make sure to look in the cooldown section. If the situation is getting crazy, just look in the lesser use section. You might have something in your toolkit that you just hadn't considered. But all of the information is right here. All of the spells that are available are right here. And it sifts through all of the garbage, and it gives you your cooldowns, and it tells you your keybinds, and it makes it very quick and very easy. I hope this helps. I'm LazyCrazyJoe. Now you know.